Hello students, my name is Miss Lyric and we're here at Kualoa Ranch. Today we have a special friend that's going to teach us about cows. This is Taylor Kellerman.
Hi, how you guys doing? My name is Taylor, as Miss Lyric said, and here we're standing in front of one of our herds of cattle. This area we're in is called our black and white pasture. Our pasture here at Kualoa, we have a lot of very cool names. As some of you may know, we've shot a lot of movies here. Some of our pastures are called Jurassic Pasture. Some of our pastures are called Godzilla Pasture. We're now in black and white. Not exactly sure why it's called black and white, but this is where we are. This is our cow herd right here. This is what we call our heifer herd. All of these cows are going to become moms later for what we call our cow-calf herd. The difference is a heifer is a mama cow that hasn't had a calf yet, where a cow is a mama cow that's already had a calf or a baby. So here you have a calf, and here you have an older mama calf that's going to be put back into our cow herd quite soon.
Wow. How many cows are in this herd?
So this herd right now has a total of about 45 cows. But total herd size in any given year here at the ranch, we run between 500 and 600 animals.
Wow. So what kinds of cows are here?
So the cows are, it's interesting. You can tell the difference in cows by the difference in their color. So behind me, you'll see a black cow. That black cow is what we call an Angus. You'll see a red cow, and that cow is also an Angus, but guess what it's called? A red Angus, out of all things. The cows that have a white face, they have background that's called a Hereford. And a Hereford is what a lot of people think of when they think of cows, where they have that black and white appearance. But the majority of them are known as what is Angus. There's a pure white one. That pure white one has a really funny French name. It's called a Charlet. And if you look closely at Charlets, I call them beetle cows because they have funny haircuts on top of their heads.
Wow. What are those tags near their ears?
That's a really good question. So the tags on their ears are called ear tags, of all things. And what it is they're numbered. And what that allows us to do is it allows us to keep track of them. So your number is kind of like your name. So we know when you were born, we know who your parents were, we know where you're supposed to go, and we know anything that's happened to you during your lifetime.
Wow. I see some cows have two colors. Is that normal?
It's really normal to have two colors. Some cows are always born with two colors, but that's a very good question because these cows are two colors because one parent was one type of cow and the other parent was the other type of cow. For instance, my mom had blonde hair, my dad has black hair. My mom has light colored skin and my dad has dark colored skin. I am a weird mix of everything and I'm what's called a goofy redhead, or at least I used to be, but I have gray hair now. These cows are actually a mix of two different colors because of two different breeds.
Wow. Is it normal for two breeds to come together and then more colors can be shown by their children?
It is normal. What's kind of interesting is that there are certain things that will appear that neither of the parents had. And it's a big word, but that's called a recessive gene. All that really means is that it was somewhere in the makings between the mom and the dad, but it didn't come out except in their offspring. Going back to the example of me, neither of my parents have red hair and I have red hair, or had red hair, as my kids would say.
Wow. How big do these cows get?
Another really good question. These cows behind us, except for this little guy, are just around 700 to 800 pounds. A full-grown mama cow can be all the way up between 1,500 to 2,000 pounds. We do actually use some of our cattle so that people can enjoy steaks and hamburgers and things like that. And when we harvest those animals, they're at about 1,100 to 1,200 pounds.
Wow, that's a lot of meat.
It is, yeah.
So, do they just eat grass or do they eat other things?
So you have really good questions. I want to commend you on that. So what's funny is that you hear people say, I like grass-fed beef. Well, all beef is grass-fed. And what the main difference of cattle in Hawaii versus cattle in the mainland is that we grass finish our beef, which means that all they eat their entire lives is grass. On the mainland, sometimes they give things like corn and soybean and even potato peelings and things like that, which is called a silage.
Wow.
But here they live on grass their whole life.
So is this how big a normal pasture is?
So this pasture is unique in the sense that the paddocks or the portions are quite small. And the reality is it's kind of an easy way to think about it. If you have a 10 by 10 room in your house, that's good for maybe one person, hopefully, because that's not a very big space. So cattle are the same way, in the sense that you look for about 1 acre of grass per cow. This is a little bit of a different system because we're rotating them very quickly. But the thing about raising cows is really, what are they? They're grass eaters. They're giant lawnmowers. So taking care of the grass, just like your parents do at your house with your yard, is just as important as taking care of the animals. And this is not one, but oftentimes we use fencing that has a little tiny bit of a shock to it. We call it an electric fence. And what that does is that it tells the cattle that there's a barrier there. And some people think, oh, you're shocking the cows. Not at all, because they get shocked one time, just like when I get shocked one time, and they'll never touch that wire again. So it keeps them in the place that they should be, so that they can eat their grass. And then when it's time for them to finish what they've eaten and the pasture is nicely eaten down, we move them to the next pasture. And then they eat that down, and then we move them to the next pasture. That does two things. It allows the cattle to always have fresh grass, because right, when you eat food, you want it to be fresh. But it also allows the area that they ate in 3 weeks ago to grow back. So it keeps the health of the pasture up as well. So health of the cattle and health of the pasture.
So they're kind of like lawnmowers in a way.
Exactly, exactly. And we're kind of like grass farmers, not really ranchers. Yeah.
So are there other ways to make sure the cattle don't escape from their pastures?
So we do what's called a perimeter fencing, which is on the edge of our entire ranch. We use a very heavy duty fencing that looks like this so that they can't go in and out. It's an actual structural barrier. And then inside those perimeter fences is where what we have interior fencing. And that's the stuff that they just tend to respect after a while. Sometimes they get out, but the main thing is they don't get out outside of the ranch.
That way people are safe as well, since we're near the road.
Right. And cows are they don't bother you much. They're more afraid. In fact, that's a good question. Cows are, you know when you move cows, like how do you move cows? The best way to move a cow is to walk towards it, because a cow is always going to walk the opposite way that you're walking. So if you want to move a cow straight ahead, you walk towards it. If you want it to turn right, you come in on its left-hand side. If you want it to turn left, you come in on its right-hand side. If you want to make it go where you're standing, you have to go all the way around and come behind it and then walk towards it. And that's called a cattle flight zone.
Wow. Is it normal for them to bundle up together?
When it's hot, just like now. It's very hot. So in the mornings and evenings, they'll all be out eating, but right now they're trying to conserve their energy and stay cool.
So you mentioned that these are female cows. Where are the male cows?
The male cows are with our what we call a cow-calf herd, which is where all of the babies are born, and that's in a different part of the ranch.
Wow. So how many pastures are actually here on the ranch?
Ooh. There's 3 valleys on the ranch. We're in Kaava. Kaava has 17 proper pastures. This cell has 12 pastures. And then there is another 2 valleys that also have the same number of pastures. So close to 75, I would say.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
If cows were to leave the area, how would you slowly move them back? Would you just, like how you taught us, by moving them in a certain direction, or would you have another person help you as well?
you would have another person help you. And the primary reason is because if you have a group of cows and you use that lesson that we taught, they'll just kind of scatter. So what you do is you have enough people that you can create what's almost like a net. So you would have, say, myself, maybe somebody here, maybe somebody there, maybe somebody there, so that you're more like a beacon that pushes the whole herd. The main thing though is that cattle are animals and we're animals, and just like we don't like to be stressed out, cattle doesn't like to be stressed out. So that whole process is done very slowly, very calmly, and everybody thinks of ranchers going, yeah, whoop them up, that type of thing. That's almost the worst thing you can do. In fact, many times when you're what's called pushing cattle, you just go whoosh, 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 making sounds like that, because it keeps them calm, but they know they're supposed to move forward.
So do you have any funny stories about these cows?
So I do have a pretty funny story, although it may not be as funny to my wife as it is to me, which is about 6 months ago, I was lying in bed, peacefully sleeping, and I live in the middle of this pasture, and in a house, don't worry, not in the grass. I actually have an area I live in. And, but we have our yard, and our yard is fenced off from the rest of the pasture, so there shouldn't be any animals in my yard other than our pets. And I woke up to my wife telling me that there was something outside, and I took a flashlight and I shined a light on a great big 1,000-pound cow that had gotten into our yard and was eating all of our garden plants. And so I decided that I was going to go outside, and I only had shorts on and slippers and no shirt, and I was going to get the cow back into the pasture. As soon as I got outside, it took off down my driveway towards the main road. So I did what we talked about. I used my flight zone. Remember what I said? If I want to get a cow to come to me, I got to go all the way around. So I had to go through all of this brush and guinea grass to get all the way behind it. I pushed it back towards my yard, and my wife was trying to help, but she came walking out. The cow saw my wife, got spooked, and came back at me. I was able to go, hey, and get it to go back towards her. She didn't move. It came back towards me, and at that point the cow decided I was less scarier than my wife, which I don't blame him. And the next thing that happened is I got so scared he was going to make it onto the road. I tried to make myself big, and I crouched down like this, and it literally ran into me, pushed me up against the fence so that its head was here and its chest was against mine. And I started pushing it, and it all of a sudden turned and jumped over a 6-foot fence back into the pasture and ran away. That's my story.
Wow.
I breathed really hard after that for about 20 minutes. Yeah.
That's quite an experience.
Well, I don't need to do that again. Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot you're teaching us from just by cows.
Yeah, and we are so excited for you guys to come out here when we can, because it's always really fun to have you guys out, so we're really looking forward to it.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. There is much more to learn here at Kualoa Ranch. Stay tuned.